Ladies and gentlemen and ladies, welcome to another week, another episode of the Medicine Ball Podcast. You could have chosen to spend your time anywhere. You rock with me today. Thank you. I never take that lightly. Before we get into it, let my beat drop. Yes, that's right. Welcome to Medicine Ball with your boy S3 to be exact. And if you ain't in shape, at least your brain should be. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Medicine Ball Podcast, where we focus on giving your brain a six-pack by exercising your mind. Now, exercising your mind means that you actively think about and deal with all situations by first seeking to do anything other than what you are normally programmed and or comfortable in doing. Now, if you're someone who struggles and wants to get better at thinking about things beforehand, as opposed to reacting in ways that require less effort, well, just like anything you want to get better at, it does require training, practice, and work. Now, I'm well aware that thinking about things beforehand as opposed to responding off instinct does require effort. And who doesn't prefer things that are easy? Well, the first step, my friends, can be very easy, and that's to begin to look at all things from an unbiased point of view, which in itself will increase your curiosity in life. Now, exercising your mind won't give you all the answers. You will, however, begin to look at things with more peace, understanding, and patience, while simultaneously equipping yourself with more tools and strategies to help you effectively deal with this thing called life. Now, before we go any further, I'm no doctor, no psychiatrist, no psychologist. I have, however, been diagnosed with bipolar disorder level 1 for 16 years. And to be honest, I got to a point in my life where I was looking at the person I was becoming versus the person I wanted to be. And that, among other things, required me to look at my mental health responsibly. So whether or not you're diagnosed or know someone who's diagnosed or have symptoms or just want to know more about it, it doesn't matter. Maybe you're one of the many people who could just use some tips, tricks, and different ideas to help you get through day-to-day life. Pull up a seat, kick up your feet. ELE, everybody love everybody. This is your home, no judgment zone. Welcome to Medicine Ball. I appreciate you. This week's episode, season 3, episode 15. Lead From Behind. Let's go. Yeah, let's get right into this week's episode. Season 3, episode 15, Lead From Behind. Now, I'm, kind of alluded to it and made some mention to it on previous episodes that occasionally I would find that a couple of the episodes had this kind of similar underlying tone or underlying theme to it, and that it would probably be more beneficial and organized, right, to just start doing series. So this will mark the first episode of the first series we're going to do officially here on Medicine Ball. The series is entitled Leader in You. That's right, the leader in you. Now, with that being said, you can ask a majority of people if they think they're a leader or a follower. Most people say, I'm a leader. Social media, where we all on, is kind of built upon this underlying principle or underlying, kind of theme behind leading and following. And it's not said, but it's suggested almost that the person with the most followers is the true leader or the biggest leader. And with that even being said, men, right? Men, I feel like, especially if you're in a relationship or have kids, if you're asked if you're, a leader or do you consider yourself a leader, you're going to say yes, and a lot of that is ego, which we'll get to later. But for those of you who are just like, man, I'm not a leader. I would never volunteer to lead. And, don't think that this is something you can relate to. I'm going to throw out a little quick, if whether you follow the show or not, I always talk about, my walk with faith, devotionals, things of that nature. But I just want to throw out a quick little scripture and piggyback off of it, right? Now, this is Romans, chapter 12, starting at verse 6. And it says, we all have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. If it is serving, then serve. If it is teaching, then teach. If it is to encourage, then give encouragement. If it is given, then give generously. And if it is to lead, do it diligently. And that's just to say that for those who think, I'm not a leader, I wouldn't consider myself a leader. Sometimes we have gifts, man. And what you'll find more often than not, if you think about it and you might not understand it, is you keep getting thrown into situations where you're just like, man, this is not something I'm seeking, but why are people always asking me about this? Or why am I good at matchmaking and maybe I'm not in a dating situation myself? And things of those natures, you'll keep, I don't know, it's God if you ask me, but you'll keep being thrown in those situations. So me personally, I could just use myself as an example. I've always been a person who's just able to network and connect with a lot of people in a lot of dope positions. Like you might know somebody who, is a radio host over here for real, or somebody who's really good at graphic design, or somebody who knows the algorithm, or somebody who's good at Bitcoin mining or something like that, or somebody who's good at making shoes. And it's kind of like it's right in your lap, especially with me, with my connection being in Atlanta. Like, man, why don't you just put something together like I don't know, I'm just giving an example in this situation. A music, what's he like? A record company. My frat brother was just talking. Why don't you put together a record company, or build a complex where everybody can create this stuff, or start their own clothing line? It's like, man, I don't be really wanting to quarterback that, but I keep finding myself in situations, and often you will find yourself in those situations. So spinning that back to leadership, need you guys to understand a couple of things before we get into this series, and I'm going to elaborate on this more. But the first thing I want to let you guys know, man, is to be a true leader, like you got to be completely selfless and take ego out of it. You have to be selfless and take ego out of it, because number one, if you're a leader, you know how hard it is for a human being to go and tell somebody like, hey, you're a leader, you're in charge of me, and you're doing a great job. See, when you're a leader, people aren't going to tell you, but they'll show you. So a person might not say, hey, I'm recognizing you as leader, but they may ask you a bunch of things that a person who's being led by another person will ask. So to get this kind of leadership grasp, I think it's important that we take that out of it first, and that whole ego aspect out of it first, so that you can understand kind of where I'm going with this and, what's really going on. Because, just real quick, I'm going to touch on it and I'm going to let it go. Like, people, I don't think they realize when they say they want to be great, or a leader, or a captain, or the person where everybody looks to, man, like it's nothing about none of that that's easy. In fact, it's hard, and it takes a lot of sacrifice, a whole bunch, which is why there's not a whole bunch of them. So leader, you got to take your ego out of it and realize that when you get to this whole thing of being a leader and leadership, you got to understand right off the bat how hard it is for you to probably go tell somebody that they're a leader and all of that. It's not in human nature. People won't tell you're a leader, but they'll show you. So, leading from the back, before we get into this leadership series, I'm starting from one of the basics, the bottom, bars. You see how I did that, leading from the back? That's where I'm starting. Because this right here, this style and this whole thing that I'm going to get into is very, I think, crucial in grasping also, not just leadership, but just being a better person, or being the best version of yourself, and just being, a empathetic person. So when I first started this, man, I was looking at it from the aspect of like somebody who can motivate people to be their best self, almost like a coach, right? And just my situations and what I'm trying to get better at, and the situations I'm finding myself thrown into, like it's a skill to doing that. So that's where I started. Now, as I started to dig and do more research, y'all know how I do, I found out, lead from the back is an actual style, because I'm thinking, hey, if you're a motivator, you're behind somebody, you're really pushing them. Even though you're the leader, you're pushing them. So that's where I thought about it. But then when I started to do research, I was like, this is really something. Lead from the back is an actual leadership style. So as I started, digging into it more and more and just reading up on it, it's just like crazy how things click. Two names popped out immediately of people who use this style and adopt this principle of leading from behind, which is also known as shepherding. Barack Obama was the first person. The second person was Nelson Mandela, who adopted this style and used this style, and it had to be impactful, because I'm pretty sure everybody listening to this knows who those two people are, or something, right? So I went back to Mandela, right? Because, he was in jail and et cetera, et cetera. And I started looking at this leading from behind. And in 1994, he wrote a book, and the book was called Long Walk to Freedom. And specifically in the book, he was alluding to this style being like a shepherd. Take heed of that. Being like a shepherd, this leading from the because you're walking behind, letting the weakest go first, and then the others follow that one, and they think that they lead. And this goes back to ego, and we're going to get into this as this, series progress, like the thinking and what it matters, who thinks what, et cetera, right? So he's like, it's a shepherd style. Like, you guide them slightly, you know what I mean? If you see them going into danger, you're keeping an eye on them and things of that nature. And he also offered this other part. He was like, when you're leading as this style, when it comes to opportunities to celebrate victories or a win for you. You let everybody else take those opportunities. You don't celebrate them. But when it's danger or something that you have to face and get in front of, you're the first person to step up for that. Now, as I said at the very beginning of this, we're going to get into it because I know some people might be new. Like, if you want to be a successful and efficient leader, man, you cannot think like everybody else. You got to throw ego out the window. You have to, or else this is not going to make sense to you if you can't let it go. And this is why this style, even though Mandela and Barack Obama used it, is not practiced a lot because people can't get over, even as leaders, they can't get over this idea of, hey, I'm the leader. I want to be front and center, et cetera, et cetera. Now, spinning all of that back to this whole thing behind motivation, and I humbly say this, and I just use myself for subject matter. If somebody reaches out to me and it allows me to use my use, so I say this so humbly. It's certain things, and to be honest, it's really awareness, but you have to know your gifts or at least be seeking them, especially if you're checking this podcast out and exercising your mind. You got to know your strengths and your weaknesses. You have to, so that you can best use them to get through life, skillfully, right? Which is like the real definition of someone who's wise or wisdom. Wisdom, the ability to get through life skillfully. So motivation. So I always know that everybody's always going to be like, what's in it for me? It's human nature to want to know what you can get out of, even though, if you're thinking that way, you're starting off wrong, but I get it. Motivation, which is really serving someone, right? Because you're all in it for them. It's not you who's doing whatever you're motivating them to do. It's a task that you can't do for someone, and you have to, through your words and how you interact with them, get them to do it. It's bringing out, and that's the first thing. If you want to have some pride in this, motivators or people who motivate, they elevate and they take people to the next height. They help people become the best version of themselves, which in itself I think is a beautiful thing. And like, I've always noticed that about, and not even about myself. This is stuff that people say. Like, even when I was doing the music and whatnot, like, I never tried to block anybody from an opportunity. If somebody was better than me, I'm like, yo, here is the plug. Here's his information and his contact, right? I've had situations where I was throwing parties, and this was way back. Shout out to BJ and Rep One. Go check them out. Still throwing the parties, but this is way back when YouTube was kind of jumping off. We was doing YouTube interviews in the club way back like 10 years ago. And I never jumped up to be like, yo, let me be in an interview. And just through conversation and just being around the guy who was cutting the videos and doing the interviews, was like, yo, I ain't know you was one of the promoters. Why you ain't never run up on me and say, give me an interview? And I was like, man, it ain't even about that. It's about just success. He was like, yo, so all of that to say, I've heard that. So it's a thing to bring out the best version of other people's selves. And all of this starts out with first being the best version of yourself. All right. The other thing that this leads to is, if you're in business or something like that, is it leads to innovation, right? If you don't know, if you listen to this, you should know what innovation is. If not, you should know that I'm going to tell you to Google it, do some work, exercise your mind, but basically more opportunities. So y'all know me. I'm going to give y'all 3 things that you need to do in order to become someone who leads from behind, whether it be at work, whether it be at your house with your marriage, whether it be with your kids, whether it be with your inner circle, whatever you got going on, that most people will tell you that they're a leader. So I'm going to give you these 3 things so we can start on in this series on leading from behind. Now, before I give you these 3 things, I want to make this very, very clear. And this is what I think, started shaping me to start to become a leader, right? Because I ain't the best leader ever. I don't think it's out there, but I know the numbers. But anyway, the first thing you need to understand is you can't lead anybody if you can't lead yourself. You cannot lead anybody if you don't lead yourself. When I was striving in, corporate America to be a leader, right? It wasn't always discipline, because y'all know me. I try to use hacks to get through stuff, mental hacks. It wasn't always discipline that made me get up early. It wasn't always discipline that made me make sure I stayed late to do the stuff like that. No, I would just simply tell myself, bro, you can't run no business and expect to tell other people to do stuff that you don't even do. So the whole idea behind this, as we go into these 3 steps, is you have to first be able to lead yourself. You all first have to be seeking or working to be the best version of yourself before you can go to do that for anybody else. And you can fake it, but something about the energy, it's just you're going to get to a point to where you get exposed. All right? So let's get into it. Number one, to start practicing leading from behind, and it's an acronym. The acronym is BADS, right? It's about yourself first. Be aware, be disciplined, and be self-motivated. So the acronym is BADS. The B is for B, and then it's aware, disciplined, and self-motivated. Again, you putting the onus on you first before you even start to go get somebody else straight. You can't fake this kind of energy. You're going to wear yourself out if you're not somebody who's aware and disciplined and self-motivated, and you think you're going to go motivate and tell somebody else what to do. All right? It's going to be draining. Number two, and I say this all the time, man, and people I don't think they understand. You have to invest into people. You have to invest into people. And by that, I mean time, interest, some of your mental space. You can't fake that, man. You have to really know, and it's all stuff we're going to hit in this series, but it goes further into you got to know your team or the people around you. You got to know your squad in order to be efficient and know who's good at what and what gets delegated where. But you have to invest into people first. You can't just come in and think that you got all the answers and not know who's a visual learner, who's somebody who just might be a little grumpy, but hey, if you work with them, they're the most efficient person, right? Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, I think, really understood this. Shout out, you know me, I'm going to take it back to medicine ball, but it's just like, you got to know, and I guess that comes with them from spending so much time around each other with sports, but you got to invest in your people, and you can't fake that. The only way you'll be able to invest in people effectively, which means that you learn them in order to be a leader, right, is you have to spend time and put the effort into them. And again, that's you being selfless. All of this is more like you being a servant as opposed to a leader, all right? Number three, the last thing is listen effectively. And this is going to be a topic that I had to actually put on my notes. We'll elaborate later because we're going to get into this whole thing about listening and because I talked about this previously, sometimes you're listening and people may just not understand that you've already gotten their point, and there's certain cues and certain things that they want you to say in order for them to feel like you're listening to them. And again, it's all about what they feel about, not what you feel about. So listen effectively. You know what I mean? I say this to people I meet with and lead with and counsel, like, yeah, you listen, but you got to listen effectively. That doesn't always include wording. That includes tone. That includes pace. And one of the things that really made me more alert to this was starting to learn other languages, such as Mandarin, when I learned, like, man, if you say wah like that versus wah, like them two things, just them two tones I did mean two totally different things. So that, I think, helped me to open up, but you have to listen effectively. Now, when it comes to corporate America, they'll tell you, like, the conversation should be you probably talking 20%, listening 80%, but I would say at least 60-40. And it's not even for information. It's because the other person has to feel like, and again, this is an ego and a mental thing we're going to get into. Unfortunately, they may just have to feel like they're getting the upper hand in the conversation. It's a power thing in order for it to go through. But I'll elaborate on that more. So those are three things. The first one is the acronym BADS, which is B for B. And there's B, aware, discipline, and self-motivate. Number two, invest into people, time, learning, understanding, getting to know them. Number three, listening effectively, and that includes pace, tone, subject matter, context. And those things will help you to start to lead from behind, and they will start to help build other characteristics in you that are needed if you just want to be a leader in general, right? Whether it be your own business. I mean, even if people won't say they're a leader, people be like, I'm not a leader, but I own my own business. All right. Last thing before we close it out, man. So throughout this episode, and even with me saying the scripture in the beginning, man, I think we got the shepherd thing. But one of the other things I wanted you guys to kind of see is it's a servant mentality. So this leading from behind, which is quoted by saying shepherding, guess who else is a shepherd? Guess who else takes on the role of a servant? John chapter 10, verse 11. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. So ladies and gentlemen, not only is this aspect about leadership, not only is it about being selfless, Not only is it about, guiding people effectively, by word and style, if you know anything about the scripture, it's following after somebody who I say is the greatest role model ever. Jesus Christ, man. That's the quote for y'all. I'm going to wrap it up. Start to lead from behind. I'm really excited for this leadership series. It's the leader in you. You know what I mean? It's either in you or it's on you. You can't wear it like a shirt. And maybe you somebody who done got to the end and just don't know what to do or don't have no idea of what to do. And that's what this is about. That's what my show is about. I'm not an expert. I'm just an option. If you're somebody who's tried everything or think you have, hopefully this is another option. And I always say this, and this piggybacks right on being somebody who leads from behind, man. Sometimes you're dealing with people who have given up on themselves, and they're never going to tell you, I gave up on myself. And all they need is someone to say that they believe in them, man. I believe in you. Pick your head up, man. Keep it moving, man. I promise you on the other side of this, at the very worst, you're going to be able to take adversity without getting so hurt. That's the bare minimum you're going to get out of pushing forward, all right? Until next week, this has been season 3, episode 15. Lead from behind. Y'all stay up. I love y'all. Medicine Ball, LS3. Follow me on all social medias. Like, subscribe, and share. I love y'all. Stay up. Yeah.